Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought we'd make this cute little floral card using the Penny Black Playful Flower transparent stamp. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off by using a 100-pound pink cardstock, and I'm going to be cutting it at 4 1/4 by 11. And then I'm going to score it at 5 1/2. And that's going to give me a standard A2 size card. And I'm going to just take my bone folder here and press out that crease. And that is going to make a top folding A2 size card. So now I'm going to take some craft cardstock and I'm going to cut it at 5 1/2 by 3 1/2. And this is also a 100-pound cardstock. So now that I have that cut, I'm going to go ahead and place that in my MISTI. And this is the stamp here. This is called Playful, and it's by Penny Black. It's one of the transparent stamps. And it's a beautiful floral, and I love on the packaging they give you some ideas of how to color it. And so now I'm just going to position it on this cardstock, and what I want to do here is I want to stamp this all over this panel. So I'm just positioning it here, and I want to make sure that it goes off the edges. So I'm grabbing the Distress Oxide ink from Tim Holtz, and this is the Gathered Twigs color. And I'm going to stamp this a couple of times because you can see there that it didn't completely stamp the first time. Now I was going to use my Versamark ink pad, which makes a watermark on the paper, but I just didn't feel that it was quite dark enough. So I decided to go with this color instead. So I was just trying to get kind of a tone-on-tone look. So you can see here now I'm cleaning off the stamp, I'm making sure that it's completely dry, and then I'm going to lay it back down on the cardstock, just positioning it where I want it to be. Again, making sure that I go off the edges and completely cover the panel. And then I'm going to stamp this a couple of times. You can see that that first stamping just doesn't come out completely clear. So it did take 2 or 3 times for each stamping. Now I went ahead and finished the panel the exact same way, cleaning off the stamp each time and restamping. So now I'm going to grab the Penny Black dies. I'm taking the largest one from this set, and this is called the Snowflake Stitched Frames. Okay, so I wanted to show you what I did here. I'm sliding the paper underneath the die only on one end, and you can see that there. And then I'm taping it in place. I just want to put it right up to that cutting edge, not on the cutting edge. And I'm going to, again, have the opposite end on the other side of the die. I just want to cut this one end. And I'm going to only run the machine only up till I cut that side, and then I'm going to back it back out. I'm not running it through the entire die cutting machine because I don't want to put a crease in that other end of the paper there. So by doing this, you can get a partial die cutting. And this is a great way to look at your dies. Try to use them in a different way. Now, from these dies, I'm taking that third one in there. This is the same set of dies that we used to do that little end panel there. And I'm going to run this through using the 100-pound craft cardstock. And now that I have those two panels, I'm going to ink up the edges a little bit here. I just want to make it look a little bit more antique-y, but everything I'm doing here is kind of a tone-on-tone. So I'm grabbing that Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink again, and I'm just kind of going up a little bit over past where those little dots are. And then I'm going to take the ground espresso, and I'm just going to run it along the edge, just to darken that edge a little bit. And I'm going to do the same exact thing for the other side. And for this little panel here, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just adding the Distress Oxide Gathered Twigs just all around all 4 edges there. And then just right along the edge, just to kind of frame this a little bit, I'm putting on the ground espresso color. So now what I want to do is take a piece of that pink cardstock, and I want to just place a panel of that underneath here. So I'm taking my mini power tape from Tombow, and I'm just going to put tape all over the back and just tape it right down to this piece here. And that's going to make those dots behind there be that pretty pink color. Now I'm just taking my Tim Holtz titanium scissors here, and they're 9.5 inches long, which is really fantastic because when you're cutting something straight like this, it's a really easy way to do, so you're not kind of chopping at it. It's just one stroke and you can cut right through it. So you can see there I added a little bit of ink around the edges just to darken that pink a little bit. And now I'm just going to take these panels and attach them to my card. I'm just going to center this one here. And again, you can see the pink kind of shows through those little dots. So now for this piece, I did want to pop it up a little bit, so I'm going to grab some Scotch foam mounting tape, and I'm just going to place some tape all over the back here. And you can see that I kind of cut the strips in half. I'm a little bit frugal with my tape. So I just put enough on there to make sure that it doesn't collapse in the center and that it sits up, you know, and pops up a little bit on the card. So now that I have that in place, I want to do the panel for the center. So I'm going to grab my Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock, and I'm going to cut it at 1 7/8 by 1 7/8. And what I love about this We Are Memory Keepers cutter, and I know I've said this before, but all those markings are right at the top. You don't have to think about where you're cutting. It says it right on the top. So it's down to the eighths at the top, which makes it really nice, because I don't know if you're like I am. Sometimes when someone says something in eighths, I have to really think about where am I supposed to cut this. So this makes it a lot easier. And now again, I'm going to grab the Misty stamp positioner here, and I just want that flower there. I don't want any other parts of it. I just want that one flower. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that Tombow tape and place it down just to hold this panel in place. I don't really have anywhere to put the magnets, so I'm just going to use the tape to hold it down for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and position the stamp where I want it to be. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab this 1-inch Post-it tape, and I'm going to place the tape over those areas that I don't want to ink. So I'm just masking off the areas that I don't want ink to get applied, and that's going to leave me just that single flower. So it did require a couple of pieces of tape here. I'm just trying to make sure that I cover it properly and I don't cut off any of the image that I do want. So now that I have that tape in place, I'm going to go ahead and take the anti-static. This is from EK Success. It's an anti-static tool, and I'm just going to put it all over before I put my embossing powder on. So now I'm going to ink up the image with the Versamark ink pad, and make sure you have a nice good coating of this on here. And then I'm going to remove the Post-it tape and stamp the image. Now if you do have to go back and stamp it again, make sure you put your Post-it tape back down so that you block off any areas you don't want to stamp. But it's easier just to make sure you have a nice thick layer to start off with. So now I'm grabbing the Nuvo embossing powder in the Ballerina Pink, and this is such a beautiful pastel pink color. I just thought it would be pretty to kind of have a subtle image and really make the flower pop by coloring it in and just have the background of it be a really pale pink. So that's why I chose this color. Now I just put the rest of the powder back in the jar, and I'm heating up my heat gun a little bit. You do want to heat the heat gun before you go to the embossing powder. Once it's nice and hot, you can emboss that image. And this just comes out so pretty. You have a nice, has a nice glossy finish to it. So now that I have that done, I'm going to grab this Molotow Art Masking Pen, and I'm going to go ahead. This is going to mask off the areas of this stamp that I don't want color to be applied, because I'm going to be using my applicator tool to apply some background color to this. And I could have watercolored a background, but I really wanted to add a nice dark background to it. So by masking this flower off completely, I'm able to keep this from getting any color on it and getting a nice rich background. And the other thing too is I could have cut a mask from paper, but you can see those little areas where the leaves are would have been very difficult to do. So this was my easier choice. I let that set and dry, and then I'm going to grab the Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to rub that all over the background. And you can see here now I can go right up to the image. And I can just keep on buffing that in, and it's not going to affect the masking fluid at all. So now I get a nice coating of that. And while that masking fluid is on there, I'm going to go ahead and take my Distress Sprayer, and I'm going to give that a little spritz just to add a little bit more texture to this panel. And you can see that leaves a nice little bubbly splotches on there. So I think that looks pretty good. So now that I have that all done, I'm going to grab this little gum eraser, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull that masking fluid off of that flower and the leaves. And now you could do this with your finger. Just take your finger and rub on it and it'll come right off. I just thought it was easier to use this little eraser. Now I'm going to take the Clean Color Real Brush pens, the light pink, the pink, and the wine red, and I'm starting with the lightest color. And then I'm coming in with the medium tone. And for right now, I'm just going to use those two colors. And I'm going to take my Tim Holtz Waterbrush, and I'm just going to blend those two colors together. Just kind of pulling from the darker to the lighter color. And I know it's a little hard to see, but as we start coloring it in, you'll get a little better idea of what it's going to look like here. And now I'm doing the same thing, the light pink and then the darker pink, and pulling those colors together. And I'm going to continue to do that all the way around here. Now I'm just blotting off as I go any excess ink that I have. I'm just blotting it on a paper towel so that it doesn't get too dark. I'm saving that wine red for the last. Sometimes when I'm doing 3 colors with the Zig Clean Color markers, I like to let the first couple of colors dry just a little bit before I come in with that 3rd color. But that's up to you. You can apply all 3 right up front and do your blending that way. But I didn't want a lot of the wine red, and you'll see here when I use that color that I'm just using a little dab of it. I just wanted just a little bit of a highlight there. So now you can see that I'm continuing to do that. And these pens, if you haven't used them, they blend so beautifully. Now you can use the lighter color pen to blend, or you can use a water brush. It's up to you. And what you see me doing there is just dabbing off any excess. Because this image is embossed, some of the ink that I'm coloring in is sitting up on top of the embossing a little bit, and I don't want it to smudge, so I'm just blotting it off as I go along. So now that I have that entirely covered, I'm going back with that wine red, and you can see here I'm just dabbing in just a little bit, and it's going to give me a lot of depth. And I didn't need much at all. So start off, it's better to start with a lighter hand, and if you need more, you can always add more. But if you did apply too much, don't panic on that either, because these pens are very forgiving. You can go back in with your water brush and just kind of lift the color and remove it, and you can even blot it a little bit to lighten it up, and then go back in and do your highlighting. So I find that these pens, I do turn to these a lot because they are very forgiving. And if you're kind of a beginner in coloring, and I'm no expert, but I do find that these are pretty easy to use, and I find they even look good if you just color it in without even doing the highlighting and all that. They're just really simple to use. And the fact that they have this beautiful pointy detail or tip really makes it nice to get into these little tiny areas. And you'll see, especially when I do the leaves, it's very tight space in there because of the embossing, but they work beautifully. So I'm continuing up, adding that highlighting and blotting it off where I think it's getting on the embossing powder there. And now I'm going to go ahead and take the bright yellow and just do that center. Now I'm going to take the mid green and the olive green, sort of a light shade of olive and a little bit darker one. And now here you can see the area in those leaves is very tiny. So these brushes do really well getting in those little areas. And I didn't do a lot of fussing here, obviously, because there wasn't a lot to do. So I just came in with that little bit of a darker color. And then I'm using the water brush just to blend those two together. And I finished the other leaf the same exact way. So now you can see how that looks. We've got a lot of texture there with that background, I think. So now I'm going to take that Gathered Twigs again. And again, I wanted to age this a little bit, make it a little bit more antique-y looking to go with the card. So I'm just going all the way around the edges with the Gathered Twigs, and then I'm rubbing off any excess that got on the embossed area. Just using a paper towel to do that. And then just like before, I'm just going right around the very edges with the ground espresso. And now you can see that. Looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach that to my card. Now once that was completed, I wanted something at the bottom, and I'll have to be honest with you, I tried several things, but I ended up deciding that this crinkle ribbon from Tim Holtz would work perfectly. I did try die cutting I stamped some sayings and I die cut a banner, and I didn't like any of those things. So I decided to quickly change the color of this ribbon by taking the Gathered Twigs and the ground espresso, placing them on my mixed media mat and spritzing them with the distress sprayer, and this is just water, and getting it nice and wet, and then tossing the ribbon in there and just kind of changing the color of it. I'm just kind of pressing it into those couple of different colors of inks, just kind of trying to get it completely covered in these colors, and then just checking it and seeing if I want to add more. And I did decide that I wanted a little bit more of that ground espresso color. I wanted it to kind of look like it was stained and old, kind of aged looking. So once that looked the way I wanted it to look, I took out the heat gun and I decided to heat set this just so that I didn't have to wait for it to dry, but you could certainly let it air dry. And you don't want to apply too much heat to this. You just want to kind of air dry it a little bit. So I just tossed it around a little bit until it was dry. So I wanted to show you this little tool here. It's called the Bow Easy. And it's going to allow me to make a bow in any size I want. And I'm just going to select the size that I want here. And that one there, that's the width of the bow. And the center gap there would be the knot on the bow. So you just select the size that you're looking for, and I'm going to leave a tail on one end, however long I want that tail to be, and then I'm going to wrap it around depending on how many loops I want. On this one, I do want 3 loops, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it 3 times. So that's once, and that's the second time there. And that's the 3rd time. So now that other tail that I have in my hand, in my right hand, I'm going to feed that through from the front to the back. And then that's going to leave a little loop on the front there. And now I want to take that tail, and that's going to come up through that little slit in the middle there, and I'm going to feed it from left to right through that little loop that we have there. And then I'm just going to pull on that and just pull until it tightens up and I get a nice little knot in the center. You can use your other finger there just to kind of hold that ribbon down while you're trying to pull on the knot. And then once I have that nice and secure, I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off the ribbon where I want, whatever length I want it to be. I'm just going to trim it on a little bit of an angle here. And I leave it on here while I do that. It's just easier. And then I'm going to slide the bow right off of the bow maker. And now you can see that I have this cute little bow. And I'm going to just pull from either side there just to get those other little loops to come out and just fluff it up a little bit here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side there, just kind of reaching inside and just grabbing each of those other loops and pulling them through. So like I say, you can make as many loops on your bow as you want to, and it pretty much makes the perfect bow every time. So now you have this little cute little ribbon. And now I'm going to go ahead and attach this to my card. And I'm going to be using the Ranger Multi-Medium Matte because this is a nice strong adhesive and it will dry clear. I'm going to put plenty of it on there just to make sure that the ribbon doesn't go anywhere. And I'm going to attach that to my card. So I let that dry, and now you can see we have kind of a vintage looking floral card. I did leave the inside empty just so that I can fill it in when I'm ready to send the card. And so I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.